feng shui tip for the week?
No.
Yes. And
Most like
that will be given a feng shui tip.
just noticed it. She's doing a yoga posture called arch. What's that called?
Okay,
Kids do
time
it
is
all
set.
that.
We're starting 10 seconds.
Okay.
Don't undo us, Jill. We'll be
Sorry.
able to pull ourselves together. Or I won't, anyway.
Are you ready?
Hmm?
Hi, my name is Johnna Koontz, and we're here tonight with our show called Voices on the Wind. And I have the Feng Shui Center downtown at 115 West Main, and from now on I'd like to start off the show with giving a little Feng Shui tip of the week. So for tonight, I picked one that a lot of people ask about, mirrors. How can mirrors be used in your home the best way? And so there's many different ways that mirrors can be used, but mirrors create a lot of excess energy in a room. For one thing, they'll reflect any energy that comes at them, and so it'll double the energy, you know. And if you need a room to be more quiet, like a bedroom, that's why a lot of feng shui books will say that mirrors really don't belong in the bedrooms. You know, in a bedroom you want to create a cozy place for rest and sleep and romance. So the mirrors really don't belong in the bedroom unless you want to have a dressing mirror off to the side. But the biggest part of it is you don't want to have a mirror at the end of your bed. That creates a lot of energy that will bounce off the mirror and come at you while you're trying to sleep. So if you have a mirror at the end of bed, try putting a cover over it and see the difference that you'll feel. It really makes a big difference. I've done this. Okay, and then one of the best ways you can use mirrors is in a dark area. You can reflect light coming in a window. That works really well to make the room appear larger and to bring light into a dark area. And then you want to try to be sure that what you're reflecting is a beautiful scene outside instead of maybe the neighbor's junkyard. So you can really use mirrors effectively with feng shui. And like I said, every week we'll have a feng shui tip. But tonight I'm really excited to share with you a panel of yoga practitioners that are here from Missoula. And there are many other yoga practitioners in Missoula, and we'll be able to maybe mention a few tonight, but we also want to let them know that there will be other up and coming Voices on the Wind shows that will feature yoga people and teachers. So if you're not on this show, we hope that you'll get a hold of us and you can be on another show coming up in the future. But tonight I have 4 special guests, and I'd like them to, if they would you introduce yourselves and let us know kind of how you got into yoga and maybe your history and your background of how your business got started. And how about if I start with Celeste River?
My name's Celeste River, and I started teaching yoga. Well, I started practicing yoga in 1976, and after I moved to Missoula, I started teaching yoga in Missoula in 1979 and opened the first yoga studio in Montana in 1980.
Wow.
Called Yoga Every Day. And I've continued my business license as Yoga Every Day for the past 20 years. And
I bet you've seen a lot of changes come about with
I've
your
watched
business.
the wonderful work that Marlene's done, continuing that yoga studio, and she'll tell you what her studio is called, over these years. And she's really been out in the community. I've been more underground, teaching at my own home studio.
You teach out of your home? So
At a studio, private studio, and sometimes the workshops. And I'm also a Feldenkrais practitioner, so the work of Dr. Moshe Feldenkrais informs my teaching of yoga.
Well,
I've also been making efforts to unite the yoga teachers, and we've put on 2 events now called Yoga Awareness Day in the past 2 years, and we have a schedule of all the yoga teachers that we'll talk about more later.
I know you're really active in putting all that together, and that's a big event that happens every year, the Yoga Awareness Day. So we'll, yeah, like you said, we'll talk more about that later. Well, it's good to have you here, Celeste.
Right.
And Marlene Burke, I know you've been running the Yoga Fitness Center and the director of that for many years. Can you tell us about your business?
Well, It started actually when I met Celeste, but like her, I've done yoga on my own for way, way back, probably since I was 35, and I'm getting very old. But
Don't look it.
but anyway, I met her in this probably the 70s, close to probably 1980, when she opened a yoga center here, and then she was wanting to go on to school, so I took it over. So it's been going on between the two of us for a long, long time. And it's grown, and it's been fun in Missoula to watch yoga catch on. And it's hot right now. I mean, it's just a real popular thing in the health clubs. It's become very popular. It's popular at the university. It's popular all over town, so it's getting some very good press.
Yeah, we have 2 teachers out of the Feng Shui Center, and their classes have been growing. So it really does seem to be becoming so much more popular. And earlier we were talking and kidding around that Madonna has started the craze. Huh?
Yes.
They all agree
She's
that
been
she's
a
one
big
of them.
contributor, right?
Okay, well, we'll be talking with you a lot more, Marlene. And
Good.
now we'll go on to Patricia Skergan,
Hi.
and she has a chiropractor business here in town. And what's the name of your business? Can you
Well,
share
what I
with us?
do is I evaluate restrictions in spinal energy flow,
Uh-huh.
and then by using my hands, I help the body to alleviate or reduce these restrictions so that your life force can then flow and be more enhanced. And I do this as a chiropractor. And I've been practicing chiropractic for about 13 years, and it's because every living thing has life force and thus some restrictions. My practice is from infants to great-grandparents. And I continue to do this because it's my belief that people want to feel more whole, more joyful, and more healthy. And I was doing yoga way before all this, before the chiropractic. I started when I was 17, and I guess that was a few decades ago.
That's how you stay in such good shape.
And I started in my living room at home, and it wasn't because I was, into health or anything. It felt good. I don't know what drew me to it. Who knows what draws us to yoga or to anything that we do. But it was more of an inner calling, and through the decades have practiced it. And I noticed that people who do yoga seem to do so much better with their adjustments. They heal quicker. They're more in tune with their body. I really believe that yoga has just done wonders for me, both spiritually, mentally, physically. And also, I look at some of the teachers that have been around for a long time. And
they look so young still.
I
and
know,
stay
they
in
look
such
great.
good
And I'm like,
shape.
that's what I want to do. So.
That's what it's about.
Well, that's one of the reasons I have to say that I took up yoga, because I noticed that it seemed like every yoga teacher, stayed young and flexible and were out there doing things. I've noticed that. Linda Lightfoot's another one that she does a meditation at the Feng Shui Center, and she's been teaching yoga for years. And she's another one that looks so young and is so active.
And it's a like an internal, vibrant expression that comes out, and I like that.
Well, I'll be asking some more technical questions about what yoga can do for us too. So we'll get back to you, Patricia. Jill Conrad teaches out of the Feng Shui Center, and you have 2 classes, right, Jill? One on Tuesdays at 5:30 to 7.
It's a beginning Ashtanga.
And that class has really grown, I noticed. And then Fridays, she teaches out of the back room from 1 until 2:30, I think it is.
2:15?
2:15 about.
It's a more general style of hatha.
What do you call your business, Jill?
Yoga Magic.
Oh,
That's
that's
a name I
like
just came up with.
I like that.
It's a business that I just began. So as far as yoga goes, it's been a part of my life since the beginning as well. I started in my living room, really with my mom. As a toddler, she had us in leotards and stretching with her from a book, and I've since the age of 11, which is not as many decades since I'm still young, but for about 15 years I've been practicing regularly, and as well, it's been as much of a physical routine as a way to maintain mental balance and to keep focus and integration in my life, and that's why I decided to become a teacher. I'm new at teaching. It just happened about a year ago that I began my certification process, but I think yoga is critical in how I've developed as a human being, because it's been a part of my life and a critical tool for those who are attracted to it, to maintain joy and fullness.
Yeah, from what Jill's wearing, we can't really see, darn, but I was gonna, I wanted to say that she's always amazed me at your what do you say? Well, your build. It seems and looks very defined and kind of muscular. And I asked her one day, did she get that just from practicing yoga? And yeah, pretty much, she said, because she's got several classes. Where all do you teach? Did we talk about that?
We didn't. I teach all over town. I'm finding that as a yoga instructor, you do find work in all different places, so that I've been beginning at the fitness clubs mostly, the courthouse gym, the Missoula Athletic Club, the Western Montana Sports Clinic out on 93. I know I'm missing one, but I can't think of it right now.
We can
Feng
look
Shui
at that.
Courthouse, Feng Shui Center, Missoula Athletic Club, Missoula Children's Theater,
Oh, yeah.
Wild Ground Learning Center,
The Wild Ground's
YMCA.
no longer either. I've been shifting around, but those
Yeah.
three are the primary. I teach some independent classes, an independent gentle class at the Missoula Children's Theater. The upstairs level, the third floor, is a common place for yoga classes now because it's a nice space.
Yeah. Well, this might be a good time, too. Celeste, would you mind holding this up? Because Celeste put together, or many of you maybe had part in this, but I know Celeste distributes this in many different places in town. You can come in and pick one up at the Feng Shui Center. What were some of the other places you can get one of these lists? Where it lists all the teachers, or many of the teachers here in Missoula, and where they teach and their phone numbers. So those are very handy lists to have.
Most of the teachers have this list available, and you could
Ask for it.
ask for it too.
In different chiropractors' offices, or maybe some physical therapist offices. And
Yeah. I notice it's
Your
really handy to
place.
have with all your phone numbers and everything right there.
Yeah. And
Wow.
information about the classes. So a person could call any number of people on this list and ask about their class and what sort of, whether it's a strenuous class or a gentle class, and they could begin to decide where to explore to find the right class for them at this time in their life.
Yeah, and I bet you would suggest if they don't, feel real comfortable with one teacher, try another. There's so many different ones, right? And it seems like
Definitely.
they're all good that I've seen. But sometimes you
almost a-
resonate to one teacher more than another.
You really do, and I think sometimes it's almost a personality thing. There's something that strikes you within that person that you want to connect with, perhaps, maybe, and so the learning goes better maybe with one teacher as opposed to another.
Or a different style of yoga.
Right.
Different times of your life, different styles or intention of the yoga practice can make a difference.
I noticed, well, I first started under a teacher, a good friend of mine named Gail Faust, and I think that you probably know her. And
Yes.
she teaches here in Missoula, and she also goes to San Francisco and teaches. So she moves back and forth quite a bit. But she's also a really, really wonderful teacher and teaches out of the United Methodist Church, I think.
Through the Parks and Recreation, but right now she's on our list, but she doesn't have a class going right now.
She doesn't have a class going.
You know, you can think about, when you're just looking at yoga and trying to search out which class would be best for you, think about it like as dating, that you can date one person and then date another person. You don't have to marry that person. So I always encourage the people that come to my class to take as many classes and get the input from a lot of different teachers, because that is, I think, invaluable, because every single teacher has something to offer. I love taking still beginning classes. It's just, you get so much information from that. So you don't have to marry your teacher, just date them.
I like that. I like that. And I recently started taking a class there at the Feng Shui Center, and I'm really enjoying it. And I just wanted to say that I'm going to go on to another question for you ladies. But I think I haven't been taking yoga long enough to probably see too many of the physical changes yet. I have seen a few. But what I've noticed is right from the start, if you spend that hour to an hour and a half in doing the yoga after a busy day's work, you know, or it's a good way to start off the day also, but I noticed how relaxed it makes me feel. Just, you know, just that one time of making yourself go. And it's just a peacefulness that I don't really get from any other type of exercise. And I was going to say, with all the different things that are available here in Montana for people to do, can you ladies share with us what would be the benefits of yoga over, let's say, you know, weightlifting, there's aerobics that are offered, you know, running, swimming, all the different things. Could we start with you, Celeste, and maybe you can tell us a few things that you know that yoga could provide for us that some of those others might not?
Well, I believe that yoga develops awareness. This is the most simple thing. It develops awareness. And I was going to say earlier that I also feel that the real teacher is within each one of us. And so, as Patricia was saying, to try different classes, it stimulates our own inner knowledge. When we go to a class, you'll get a sense, oh, yeah, that feels just right. I know that. That's something I really knew all the time. I didn't remember it inside myself. So I think it stimulates awareness and a relationship with our inner teacher.
Mm-hmm. Almost like a meditative
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, it is. And then the other key thing, I think, is developing an awareness of the breath. And that then carries into any other pursuit that a person might have of sports or playing an instrument. To have that awareness and that awareness of what they're doing with their breath while they're pursuing some other activity. Those are my thoughts that come to my mind right now.
Yeah, and breath is so important. It seems like in
everything.
In everything.
Breath
I mean,
is
that's
really
our breath
the
of life,
key.
right? We might as well
Well,
say
breath
it's
is
the
really the
breath of life.
key to movement,
Mhm.
to exercise, to sports, to meditation. And as you learn in yoga to lengthen your breath and develop a deeper awareness of how it affects you when you move and stretch, it's very invaluable. But this is a question that I always asked myself, because when I was younger, fortunately for me, my mother had me dancing, and she had me ice skating, and she had me doing all these things as a youngster that I grew up with. And finally, it developed into tennis and skiing and, you know, the whole gamut of all kinds of things. And when I encountered yoga, I used to wonder, is it enough? And I'd do my yoga in the living room like the rest of you, and I'd think, I don't know if this is enough, but I feel so super good when I did it that I knew that I needed it in addition. And then I found that whenever I kept some yoga practice going for myself, that if I did go skiing with my family, my awareness, like Celeste was talking about, was higher. So that shifting weight on the hill when you're skiing, shifting from one ski to another, even swinging a tennis racket. I mean, it just totally changes your awareness. And I have students oftentimes tell me that they'll even go for a walk, and maybe they'll be going down past the barn, and they look in the reflection to see if they're standing straight, to see how they're walking.
Your posture gets improved.
Yes. So it can enhance almost everything that you do. Students often say, when I'm doing yoga, life goes better.
I like that.
And so it's a big thing to think about, because we're so short of time. We don't have a lot of time in life, and we get spread very thin with exercise, in fact, to the point where we're over-exercising sometimes. So it's a dilemma for all of us, I think, to think about.
How about, can I ask you, Patricia, how about the actual physical muscles and things? Can yoga...
Just what the Celeste and Marlene were talking about,
Uh-huh.
one of the things is that the breath, as you change your breath, your body has no option except to change its physiology. So how you start to metabolize and how you get rid of your waste products, the carbon dioxide, is just changed. I mean, it's just changed. It has no other option. The other thing that Marlene was talking about was putting your conscious awareness into certain parts of your body that I don't know in other exercises if you are asked to do that as much as you are in yoga, so that you put your focused awareness in your body, and then that comes forth. Your body comes forth, or the inside. So it's almost like an exercise or a meditation or healing from the inside out, rather than from the outside in. And as we move the body, then we can begin to see how that parts of the body don't move, what the range of motion is, what the restriction is. And as we breathe and relax, that will change the area. One of the only ways that the body the joints can actually eat, like get their nutrients and their nourishment and get rid of their metabolic waste products or their waste products, is through movement. And so if you don't move, the joints don't eat, they get crusty, for lack of a better word. That's a medical term, crusty. They just don't move, and then they start to degenerate, and the muscles get tight and stiff. And then when you do something like, say, go out, for your first ski vacation of the year, a lot of things can happen. So it's best to, keep all the joints of your body moving in all their physiological range of motion every single day. And yoga does this.
And I heard somewhere that, where weightlifting and running might work the larger muscles in the body, yoga also brings in the smaller inner things
Yes,
that you don't,
right.
that you
For
don't work out
example,
as much.
In the back we have large muscle groups, amazingly large muscle groups that span from, say, your head all the way down to your waist. And in certain weightlifting activities, you really strengthen this, and that's when you get the beautiful definition of the trapezius and the lat dorsi, things like these types of muscles that you can see well defined on weightlifters. In yoga, we work those muscles as well, but we also work the tiny, tiny muscles that go, say, like from one vertebra to the other, and they're like this big.
And they get neglected in some of these
And they get
other
neglected,
things.
right.
Yeah. All right. Well, Jill, would you like to add something to that about what you think yoga can benefit, people that practice yoga?
What I heard in your first question was why is it better, I guess, than other practices? Because certainly in Montana we're very physically active and outdoors oriented, and I find that all of these activities are good, and that what yoga offers is a balance of experience. So I've had football players who come and are interested in yoga because they feel that it enhances their experience on the football field and that it enables them to perform better. Yoga enables the muscles to develop in a balanced fashion as opposed to one side over the other, which will cause misalignment and pain in the future. So in addition to just strengthening the muscles, increasing circulation in the respiratory system, and toning the body, you're enhancing the activity of the organs, you're drawing the body into alignment, so reducing the amount of pain that you experience. It helps work out injuries. I spent 9 months dealing with an injury in my sacral area that was very painful, that I couldn't even sit down comfortably. And through my daily practice, it drew it out to a point where it's almost completely gone. And that's without seeing a doctor, that's without having to seek medical attention. So it's a way to heal yourself. And with the balance, the physical practice of balance, I feel that it at the same time brings the same effects into your emotions and your mind and the spiritual elements. That some people aren't as interested in that aspect of it, but that it can bring you to whatever level. It brings you where you want to be at whatever level you want to take it to.
Well, and in this crazy rush around world that we have, it seems like it can really center you and ground you. I've noticed that. That's what it really does for me after a crazy day. Well, okay, let's move on to another question. I've got a question that a lot of people come into the Feng Shui Center and ask. They want to know how much it costs to, to come into a class, and they want to know if they're a beginner, can they just come in, if they've never had yoga before, can they just come into a class? So I'm kind of interested in how each of you organize your classes and how you run your class. Would you mind sharing that with us, Celeste?
Well, my class is ongoing. Some classes are 6-week period that some people have and starts and ends. I've just gone with an ongoing class. I teach a routine of postures, and so we always are doing the same thing. It's different every day, but we're doing the same postures, so a person can join in and then begin to pick it up gradually, and after 3 or 4 classes, they're aware of what's coming next.
Okay.
And I teach those in an 8-class segment. Because I noticed after a long time that if people came twice a week, 8 times, by the 6th or 7th time they were telling me that they were doing it on their own over the weekend or something. So I felt like even if they just came for one 8-class series or time, they would have something to work with.
They'd have
when
that
they
learning
left.
experience.
If they didn't come
so
back
they
for
could-
more lessons from me, they'd have something with that routine that they could work with. And I've always encouraged people to go on from there and learn other things about yoga. But I've stuck with that one basic routine.
That works well for you. How
Yeah,
much do
and
you charge
those are $75 for the first 8.
for
And,
eight sessions?
Yeah, if they come more than that, I don't have to focus on them quite as much. It goes down.
All right, well, that's great. How about you, Marlene? How do you work your classes? And is a beginner able to come in and...
Yes, we do. At the Yoga Fitness Center, through the years, we've added teachers. So I teach some classes. Serena Early teaches some classes. Katie Heath teaches classes, and Steve Fougere. And Steve is teaching our beginning classes at the present time. And sometimes we change those so that one of the other teachers will take some of those classes. And we have some different approaches. Because we have those teachers, we have some different approaches to yoga. We have an early morning class that I call a gentle wake-up class. But a lot of people come to that before work, and it's at 7 in the morning. And we also have some time when our Ashtanga students can come for a reduced price. They only pay $3. They can come twice a week. And they practice on their own without a teacher. They must have enough experience that they don't need a teacher. Then on Fridays when we teach the class, we do the full routine of the Ashtanga routine. And then I'm there to kind of egg them on a little bit. Most of them don't really need me because they're very fine students, but I watch their postures, see if I can help them correct them at all. Then we also have a gentle one where I have seniors, and we have some evening classes. Katie has her Ashtanga class. She has a beginning class now as well as a continuing class. And Serena has an evening class, which we call our Iyengar class. We're all a little bit of Iyengar. I think everybody in this room is a little bit, because we're all working with alignment.
Can you explain a little bit more about...
Iyengar is basically an Indian man from India who has been a real father figure in developing Hatha Yoga and feeding it to the public. And it's a kind of yoga where they really do take great care with alignment. But through the years, I think all teachers have become so aware of alignment that you can't just say Iyengar teachers are the only teachers that teach alignment. I think all of us do now. But if you were to be with just strictly Iyengar, they're very strict with their alignment, sometimes almost too much, sometimes I believe.
What about
And Charlotte teaches on Saturday. And so we now at the Yoga Center have some form of yoga 7 days a week.
Wow.
On Sundays, we have a meditation group, which comes from Self-Realization Fellowship.
Well, and you have that male teacher. I was going to ask a question about that. Are there a lot of male teachers in Missoula?
No, there aren't. We would love to have more.
Well, because I notice a lot of males come into the classes at the Feng Shui Center, so there is a big interest for the male population. So maybe that is going to happen.
It's growing, I think.
Mhm.
It's a very common thing to have classes with all women. And I think that classes that start to have a few men in them are better balanced. There's a different kind of energy that it brings, and I think they're very healthy.
Jill gets quite a few males in her class, I know. And I will want to ask the question if you can explain a little bit more after we check in with Patricia here about how she runs her business and everything. But I'd like to have us talk a little bit about. I've heard the Ashtanga and the Hatha mentioned. I think those are a couple of the most popular, and we'll be explaining a little bit more about that. And I wanted to let you know we're going to have fun later on in the program. We're actually going to have 2 yoga instructors demonstrate to students, and that'll be really a good way to learn to see a little bit more about what we're talking about.
Could I just say a little bit about our prices? Because
Sure.
I
Oh,
think
I forgot about that. Yeah.
I did too. I did forget to say that. And at the Yoga Center, what we, at the present time, what we're doing is if you come in for a single class, it's $8. And if you will sign up for, say, 8 class series, 12 class series, or 16 class series, it drops the classes down just a little bit.
You get a break.
Yeah, and students from the university pay $5.
Okay.
But the thing about it is that if you, as a person in Missoula, want to take classes, and there's a particular teacher that you want to take with, I think you should always approach the teacher. Tell them of your financial need, if there is one, and yoga is open to everyone, and I think any of us would honor that, and we would try to work with you.
It's always a
on
way
that.
to work it out.
Yes.
That's great to know.
And the prices vary with different teachers, or if you're working with a club or you're working with a private person, they vary. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you,
Mhm.
Marlene. Patricia, would you share with us where you teach and how you run that part?
Well, I teach for the adult continuing education, which is part of the Missoula County school system.
Oh.
And I love that.
That's probably
because-
a very affordable way, too, for people to take
Yes.
it, too.
I have no idea how much people pay for the class, to tell you the truth.
Oh.
I don't know. I really don't know.
Uh-huh.
I haven't had to pay for it, so I'm not sure exactly how much it is.
Well, it comes out in the little brochure,
Yes,
and the winter
yes.
schedule will be coming out, I think, in December sometime or
Yes,
January.
Yes, and so there's 4 quarters, and we usually go 8 to 10 weeks, and we have a fall quarter, winter quarter, spring quarter, and a shortened summer quarter. And there's a beginning class and a continuing class, and the beginning class is for beginners. And we have people that have done yoga before in there, and people that have never done yoga, don't know what to expect coming in. And then in the continuing class, usually after they take the beginning for a few quarters, then they can move on to the continuing. It's definitely not for people that have a lot of yoga experience, but just some. You don't have to be a yoga expert to take the continuing, just a little bit of background and a little bit of yoga practice. And I like it that way because I'm busy otherwise, and I don't want to have to deal with, registering and finding out, is this your 8th session or your 6th session, or
Yeah,
so
that's
it's
easy
very
for you.
nice. And I have to say the people at adult education have just been great, and the classes are very full. And the people at adult education have been good at, figuring out what we need and then providing it. And if you've worked with the school system, it can be a little trying at times, but they've been great.
I enjoy teaching through the adult and continuing education also. I teach Feng Shui through that, and I've noticed my classes have grown. Have your classes grown as far as popularity, do you think? Or how long have you been teaching there?
I've been teaching there 4 years, 3 years?
Oh, yes.
Something like
So
that.
you've maybe
So
seen
over
an
the
increase.
years, yes, they've always sort of been full, but we're having to add classes because they're getting full.
Well, that's good news. How about you, Jill? You can tell us maybe what you charge and where you teach.
I teach 3 classes a week independently, and things have been shifting around, so I've just decided that they're all going to be the same price starting in January. I have a Tuesday evening class, like we said. That's probably the most vigorous. It's the Ashtanga. It's a beginning Ashtanga class. So although it's open to beginners, and I have many experienced people who come in who do practice quite a bit, but aren't as familiar with the Ashtanga style. So what I can offer them is points and details that they aren't familiar with. So we have a variety of experience in the class. Wednesday evenings, that's at the Feng Shui Center. Then Wednesday evenings at the MCT building in the 3rd floor in room 306, we have a gentle class that my mother started. She and her friends wanted a yoga class that they could do that would be easy for them to do around work, so that my fiance's aunt and cousin come, so it's a nice community, and that's for 5:15 to 6:15. And on Fridays, it's the middle of the road. It's a general hatha class, including the Iyengar, Ashtanga, and Vinny styles. So it's as far as vigor goes, it's in between the other two. That's from 1 to 2:15, and I charge per class $8, and then as a group you can buy classes in group, and then they'll be $6 a piece.
So you save by
Just
buying a group ticket.
Yeah, just trying to encourage people to, once they've tried it, make a commitment.
And I've seen that works for you well there at the Feng Shui Center, I know, because a lot of people buy those group tickets.
It does.
Yeah. Well, this might be a good time to start. Would you explain a little bit more maybe about Hatha and Ashtanga? Because I know you said you teach both. So maybe I'll start with you on just explaining a little bit to our audience about the differences. And I don't know the differences yet either.
Okay.
Because I've been doing some Ashtanga. And I thought that, it gets a little confusing because some people have called Ashtanga the power yoga. And maybe you can explain about that, because I didn't realize I was getting into a power yoga
Oh, you didn't?
class. Is that why I've gotten so strong?
I know.
But it feels real good, the
does.
Ashtanga. I enjoy that.
And you've mentioned Vinny, too.
Yeah, so maybe all those 3.
Yeah.
When I say Hatha in the class, Hatha is really all of the yogas that involve physical exercise, the practice. So that's a kind. There's maybe 13 different kinds of yoga involving devotion and work and action and meditation, but the Hatha is oriented around the physical practice and breath.
Okay.
Ashtanga is one style, as well as Iyengar and Vinyasa. Those are 3 of some of the more predominant styles in the world today. Ashtanga is my practice of choice because it's more vigorous. I've found that people who do like to exercise and be physically active find it more rewarding because they're looking for something a little bit more intense. The impression of yoga, I think, often is that it's soft and gentle, and it's really very demanding, especially this one, because it involves vinyasa is a movement in between each of the postures, so that you're generating internal heat and using the breath to generate internal heat, and using quite a bit of strength, developing a lot of upper body strength as well, moving up and off the floor quite often. So that's sort of what Ashtanga is. It's an introduction. Iyengar, I think Marlene adequately described, being more precision-oriented. It's not as oriented around generating heat, holding for postures for a longer duration. So you'll find every time you experience a class that the way you practice can be very, very different. Vinny Yoga, all 3 of these practices were begun by the same man who developed these practices in different stages of his life. Krishnamacharya is his name, from India. And the beginning was, Iyengar was a student of his, and he's been the progenitor of Iyengar Yoga. Ashtanga being spread around the world, I guess, by a man named Pattabhi Joyce, who was a student of Krishnamacharya as a child. And then the Vinyasa is something that Krishnamacharya developed and taught to his son, Desikachar. In his more elder years, is geared around developing a yoga for individual needs. So it's more individually oriented, because a form isn't always suited to an individual, and a person won't always benefit from a series. They might need a particular design for themselves. It's also about how you move in and out of the forms more gently. And I think all of those styles have benefits. And when I say I teach a Hatha class, it's a style that I was trained in through Bozeman that integrates all of those three.
Oh.
And I think it's a real benefit to be able to include those three. So sometimes you'll find that the different teachers will, I hear in England there's a big conflict between Ashtanga and Iyengar. The Iyengar people will diss Pattabhi Joyce's practice and say that it's not real yoga, and Bikram will say his is the only real yoga, but I find that there are benefits to each style and that they enhance one another.
Yeah, let's not go there with those
Yeah.
I like to incorporate all kinds of feng shui techniques, and I think you probably like to keep it that way too, to incorporate. I was going to ask, Marlene, can you tell us a little bit about, like, if somebody's overweight, are they still going to be able to come in and practice yoga?
Yes, they can.
I mean, you know, sometimes I think people that are a little bit more overweight and want to get into a practice of some kind, I would think yoga would be a good place for them to start.
You can, and the thing about it is that weight, if you were going to get into an Ashtanga class and really push real hard, weight could be a hindrance for you, because the people that practice Ashtanga do try to watch their diets. They do try to keep their weight down. It just goes better when you're moving more rapidly. But there are some very large people that do Ashtanga yoga, so it's never black and white.
Maybe it's good for them to start with something,
Well,
some other style of yoga, get to know about the postures, and then
that's what I thought in the
develop their
beginning,
tone.
but as time has gone on and it has unfolded, and I have had the opportunity to see classes, different kinds of classes, you get different kinds of people. And some people, even though they may be heavier, whether they're young or old, are oftentimes in an Ashtanga class, a beginning Ashtanga class, and I don't think we do this in Missoula here, but they can get the dickens just worked right out of them. People like that sometimes. It's an individual thing. It's like Jill said, if they want the vigorous thing, whether they're heavy or not, they will try it.
Yeah, and it might even be a physiological thing. I was going to say, I know Patricia teaches diet and nutrition, and you know, they were saying like a type O blood type person needs more of an aerobic exercise mixed in. So I was thinking maybe they're the ones that want to go after that more vigorous yoga, where someone else, another type, might want to stay with the more relaxed, meditative yoga.
Surprisingly enough, Kapha, if you do get into Ayurvedic medicine and you talk about Kapha, Pitta, and the body types, the Kapha type is the slow motion type, and they do need vigorous exercise. They're the ones that put on the weight. The thing that I would like to make a plea about is age. And I know when we first started Ashtanga yoga at the Yoga Center, for 3 years I tried Ashtanga yoga, and I then was in my 50s, and I now am in my latter 60s. And what I found, well,
she's got to be joking, doesn't she?
But seriously, what I found is that, and I find that today, is that my energy doesn't hold like it used to. And while my mind wanted to continue Ashtanga, my body said no. And so, and I have noticed about myself as my metabolism has slowed down even more in my 60s, that it's more difficult to keep my weight off. And if you are heavier and you do not have a good body-mind connection for activity, it can just wear you out and even hurt your joints, I think, if you're not careful.
Yeah.
But it's always individual. They have to find that out for themselves.
And I think we'll have to tell all those youngsters out there that it really starts about 35, doesn't it? When we really have to start watching it a little bit more, you know, and watching what we eat, because it kind of sneaks up on us a lot more.
It does.
Than
It does.
I
It's
think
inevitable,
about 35.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, something that Jill was saying about your sacrum and your injury with your sacrum, I tell people so much that in my class, especially when they're beginning, that as they begin to put their awareness in certain parts of the body and moving that, if they haven't done that for, say, 10, 20 years, and if they had a problem say, a shoulder injury or surgery on a knee or something, as they begin to put their awareness into that area, they're going to start waking it up. And when it wakes up,
It hurts.
right, out comes
It
pain.
does.
Or numbness, or soreness, or some sort of awareness. And at that point, I think the trick is not to judge it, not to say, this is hurting me, I'm going to stop, and judge it as a bad thing, rather than something that they'll have to go through and move through, so that that part of the body, whether it be part of their spine or their extremities, such as shoulder, wrist, knee, so that that part of the body can then be incorporated into the rest of the body and truly be healed.
That's wonderful, and I know I understand exactly what you're saying, because a lot of times, don't you think that we, like the spiritual part of yoga, I'd like to talk about that a little bit, and we only have about 5 more minutes, so I want each of you, if you can, to think about something that the audience would really like to hear about. But you know, so many people are becoming more spiritually aware, I think, and releasing things and realizing that disease sets in, you know, with emotional patterns and things. And so yoga has a big part, I think, in releasing emotional patterns and things that have been stuck in your body for years. And I think it's, you know, one of the practices that is very important in that aspect. And why do you think it's becoming so popular right now? What do you think about that, Celeste? Like,
A lot of big questions.
Back to that again.
yeah.
Besides,
Besides
people
Madonna,
like
I
to
mean.
laugh about Madonna, that it's from Madonna. I think it's because people are gone through aerobics, they've gone through running. All these different practices can bring in a moment of enlightenment to someone. But people are looking for more spiritual awareness, more awareness. It's not of a religion, but of their spiritual center.
Their own inner
Their
strength.
spiritual source. In their inner strength, that's where your inner strength is. That's where your inner teacher is, with your spiritual life within yourself. And the practice of yoga can give a person's mind, body, and emotions the time to become aware of that inner strength and spirit.
Oh, that's good, because I know that's the trick, is getting the time and then centering and grounding.
And sometimes when you have a problem you're thinking about, if you just stop and do some yoga postures, it gives you time to get quiet within. One thing I think about yoga postures is that they're ancient, archetypal. They're ancient, as long as we've had bodies, bones and bodies. They are an archetypal position that the body can be in that's really can be seen geometrically. It's a geometric positioning of the bones and joints. And with breath, then, it gives the mind a time to come to a still place. And I've had many questions answered while I'm practicing yoga, having to do with other people's friends' well-being. If I'm worrying about someone, I can stop and do yoga and maybe get an insight into something I can suggest to them, let alone for myself.
Well, that definitely makes sense. And Marlene, since we only have a few minutes left, can you think of something you'd like to add for our audience?
Well, I was just going to say, in conjunction with what Celeste said, is Mr. Iyengar has made the statement many times that yoga is meditation in motion.
Yes, exactly.
And so if you are used to maybe doing fast movement, either in sports or aerobics or running, whatever, as you slow down to do the practice and begin to focus on what you're doing from the inside out, it gives the mind that little vacation from lots of things that will clarify or clear out things. And even if you don't have a mystical experience, as you leave a yoga class or your own yoga practice, you will be refreshed and renewed. And that's what the spiritual thing is all about, is really renewing from the inside out.
And stopping all that mental activity that
Right.
drives me crazy sometimes. I'm a real mental, and I get these mental wars going on with myself. And I have noticed since I started practicing the yoga that it really calms me down, and makes me feel better. How about you, Patricia? Do you have something to add for our audience?
Well, I am, every day is, in the day-to-day activity, I think that's where the spirituality is. And if we can get more awareness into our day-to-day activity, awareness about ourselves, about our actions, about what we're doing, about what we're not doing, about who we're harming, who we're helping, I think that is where the spirituality, for me, in the yoga practice comes from personal awareness of what my actions are creating or not creating.
Yeah. And you've always stayed in such good shape, and you're always so fit to me. Part of it's got to be yoga. Jill, do you have anything to add for our audience?
I guess two things. I like Eric Schischman's title of his book, The Practice of Moving into Stillness, and that's where we become quiet. And in order to become, the purpose, I think, of becoming quiet is in order to truly relax, which is something we're forgetting how to do more and more every day, in order to become calm. And I think the purpose of becoming relaxed and calm is so that we can listen. So when we practice yoga, we don't speak. And to me, that's a sacred time to learn how to listen and be taught instead of using your mouth. So many other ways to learn.
Oh, I thank you ladies so much for being here with us
You're
tonight.
welcome. Thank
And
you.
really, that was a lot of information
It is.
you gave for people. And I myself know a lot more about yoga and what to expect. So I really appreciate you being here with us, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
We've
you for having
enjoyed
us.
it. It's been
And,
fun.
and like I said, we're going to try to continue this and have you back again and have some other yoga instructors back. So we'll try to get the word out there on all the yoga teachers in town.
Yeah.
Because we're not prejudiced. We want them all to have full classes. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, audience, for listening with us tonight on Voices on the Wind. And we'll see you next week at this time. Good night.
Wow, that went fast.